Hello and welcome to the WrestleTalk podcast. I'm Ollie Davis. I'm joined by Luco in DAD, and in this episode, we'll be going through all those naughty bits of counter-programming WWE are doing to AEW, but they're totally not.
We're also going to be reviewing this week's AEW Dynamite, and we're going to go through this report. We're actually going to open with this new report that Triple H is not a fan of the Money in the Bank stipulation, which honestly tracks and makes sense.
Yeah, well, so this is a report from WrestleVotes on their radio show, and the quote is, "I've been told Triple H not a big fan of the Money in the Bank prop as a whole."
Yeah.
So maybe, not ladder matches. He's not against ladder matches and pulling something down from the top of a ladder. It's the briefcase. It's the stipulation that you have a whole year as a winning wrestler to cash that in whenever you want.
And the reason why I say this feels like it tracks is less about like the show that's put out on TV. I think people could point to Austin Theory's non-cash-in that he did, or his really lame cash-in that he did
For the US title.
Drew's failed cash-in last year as well on the same night that he won it, which was really just done to further the feud between Drew and Punk as opposed to get over the Money in the Bank stipulation. It's actually like I've been listening to a couple of podcasts over the last couple of weeks that have made this point. Like Steven Larson have talked about this, Gorilla Position have talked about this, and they basically, it's more from a fan perspective. It's like, I just don't think he likes it. I get the impression as a fan watching the show, Triple H does not like the Money in the Bank stip.
I feel like now we're almost 3 years into the Paul Levesque era of WWE. That initially it was like, yay, fresh coat of paint. There's no more Vince McMahon. Everything is going to be different now because all the bad things were Vince.
Yeah.
But now the tide is starting to come out a bit. And you're like, oh, but Paul Levesque was a really senior creative influence for about 20 years.
Was there a lot in... Like, from the late 90s was in creative meetings with Vince McMahon.
And either it seems like he also might have either inherited Vince's dislike for certain things because he just saw Vince book them in weird ways, and over time you just think, well, it's a hindrance rather than anything else. Or what I think is the case, Triple H and Vince McMahon share a lot of the same booking philosophy, actually. The only major difference is that Triple H books long-term, but all the things like DQ finishes, interferences, and certain things being a hindrance is actually something he shares as well. And that's why the briefcase was booked so badly under Vince over and over and over again.
But I would say that it wasn't always badly booked. Like,
no. You had some amazing bits.
You can think of like some of the classic cash-ins that came in from the Vince era. Now, granted, Vince had way more chances to have classic moments than Triple H has had with the book so far. But the other thing I think with Triple H as a booker, and I think his philosophy as a booker is, I agree with you that he has got a lot of the same ideals that Vince has got. But what separates him from Vince is that he also is a wrestling fan. Like Vince McMahon did not like wrestling. He booked wrestling because that's what his dad did, and he made a lot of money out of it. But he's clearly not a fan of professional wrestling.
It's sports entertainment
entertainment to him. But Triple H is a student of the game. He is
himself.
He is a fan of professional wrestling. He likes NWA and WCW. He does like wrestling history. So that's where we're getting this combination of the two. It's Vince era WWE with classic era pro wrestling combined together. And I guess my point I was going to make on that is the Money in the Bank stip and the briefcase is not really in that sort of classic era style of professional wrestling where you can just cash in and get a title shot whenever you want, and you've got to carry around this briefcase. But I think you can look at his track record. Austin Theory just held it for ages and then was like, and now I've not got it anymore. Like when he cashed it in, it really did feel like can't be asked with this anymore. Damian Priest.
That was a good cash-in.
It was but he did nothing with it.
No.
There was not a lot of teases with the belt. It was actually really just done for
there was every month. But it was
always done just for Judgment Day storyline. It was more about him and Finn than it ever was about Priest becoming champion. And he never made Priest look strong enough so that when he did cash in, he is now a top guy for this. And then there's Drew. I suppose that the women have probably got a better track record under Triple H because Io Sky had it for a little while, and Tiffany Stratton had it for a little while.
Well, I think one of Triple H's favourite things, and as creative forces, you usually do have your favourite story to tell over and over again. And Triple H's is obviously, here's some friends, they're going to break up.
Yeah.
And usually they're going to break up in about 17 years. And we're going to start teasing it now. And when he has paid attention to the briefcase as a plot device, he hasn't used it so much for, I'm lurking in the wings, I'm going to cash in when the time is right, which is sort of the strength of the briefcase. He's used it more to further the breakup faction storylines he's already wanted to do. So Damian Priest with the Judgment Day, although that never actually broke them up, but it certainly did with Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax.
Yeah.
That was the long, they were a friendship, loads of teasers of, I'm going to cash it in. No, I'm not.
And with Drew, it was actually just there to be another chapter in the Drew and Punk feud more than it was anything else.
And I do to an extent think 2 briefcases are a hindrance over the course of the year. Now you've got male and female briefcases. It's difficult to make them feel special throughout the year. So maybe it is better to have a quick cash-in, like either on the same night or within the month, and the other one that lasts a lot longer.
Yeah.
Or you just keep them on different brands.
That's what I would. It's a different brand thing. Like I always look at it when I've been talking about this year's Money in the Bank. We were talking about it in the office yesterday. I was like, okay, well, I've got Seth to win the men's one, so that's the Raw side of things covered. Which means if I'm picking a women's winner, I'm picking someone who's on the SmackDown brand.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be picking Julia. Who's currently my lock to win.
Well, unless, and we've been saying this before this report came out, your theory, and I think you're bang on, is Seth doesn't cash in on the same night. He cashes in 2 days later on Raw because they've already announced that Gunther is challenging Jay for the World Heavyweight title.
You nearly forgot who the world champ was.
As does everybody else. So Jay just retains in a hellacious super kick-based battle with multiple yeets, and then Seth cashes in. Bronson Reed splashes. Bron Breakker spears. They're fighting off, Sami Zayn, Cody Rhodes are trying to stop it from happening, but Seth gets the pin. And then you could likely build to Seth versus Roman at SummerSlam, which is the far bigger match. You need big matches for that card because it's 2 nights. So if the men's briefcase is being cashed in quickly, maybe the women's briefcase could be a Raw winner and take a longer time. Or Triple H finds it a hindrance and has no interest and also does that pretty quickly.
Can I just add on to your, what could happen on that June 9th episode? If the idea is, and I don't know if this is the idea, this is just my pure fan speculation, but if the idea is to emulate 10 years on the heist of the century, Seth cashes in during the match to make it a triple threat and pins Jey Uso. That way Gunther doesn't lose either.
Why do you always want to do this happened in the past, so let's do it again?
Because that's just the way we are as fans,
It's Money in the Bank. Let's do John Cena, CM Punk.
Which is, again, I think is actually all on us as fans.
Yes,
because
they never teased it.
Because they've never teased it. And I think maybe that Triple H doesn't love as much as the wrestling history that we love. He's more about hey, the 1970s and the 1980s. Whereas we're like, no, 10 years ago. And he's like, I wasn't part of that storyline, so I've got no fondness for it. Which I think is the other thing that Triple H likes to do, is that this is a storyline that I did and people liked it, so I think we could just do it with you as well.
AKA the Shawn Michaels booking in NXT.
Well, I was going to say Charlotte Flair.
Yeah.
The Charlotte Flair return earlier this year was Triple H Beautiful Day return in 02, and he would have been there they're going to love you because they loved me when I did it in 02, even though I was this heel beforehand. But sort of missed the point of the Beautiful Day return that he did, and then positioned Charlotte Flair as I'm on a boat and I'm rich and you're not, which means I'm better than you and I'm coming back now.
Well, that kind of ties into something Fightful have pointed out, that Triple H never held the Money in the Bank briefcase. He never took part in a Money in the Bank ladder match, and was never cashed in on by a Money in the Bank winner during his career, which is
that feels mad.
I haven't checked it, but I trust Sean. That is so insane.
Yeah.
I literally don't believe it.
Well, the last bit, certainly, he
Yeah.
was never cashed in on. He's like a 14-time world champion, and he had a lot of reigns during that Money in the Bank period of WWE. That's the bit I find so insane.
Well, I find it, I mean, now, like, when you think about it, Triple H, you cannot picture him in a multi-person ladder match. Triple H treats himself too specially to get lost in the mix there. But to say that a WWE main eventer from the last 20 years hasn't been involved in a ladder match, it's like saying any Hollywood star hasn't been in a superhero movie. Surely it just happened at one stage.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose him not being in a Money in the Bank match doesn't shock me. Like, it might have been one of those ones like, oh yeah, it happened in 2013. I'm like, oh yeah, I suppose I did forget that. That's the one.
Well, he's winning if he's in it. That's the other thing.
It's the fact he was never cashed in on. But maybe that is that he's got no affinity for it because he's never been involved in any of it previously. But what I find is...
but I don't... I think it's not that he doesn't understand it because he was never involved. I think he didn't like it from the outset.
Oh, right.
Which is why he politicked his way backstage using his creative influence to go, keep that crap away from me.
It's not
it's
my
a
style.
silly briefcase.
Yeah.
Jericho came up with it.
wasn't
What
my
does
idea.
he know about wrestling?
Absolutely,
Because otherwise, if he did like it, he would be winning them all the time. He loves the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
He's won a bunch of those.
Yeah.
He loves Elimination Chamber. He's always in that stip.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he won 2 Rumbles, I guess. Is it 2 he's won? Yeah, it's 2. 02 and...
It's 2016.
2016, yeah. So the other...
The one where it was for the title, yeah.
Yeah, when AJ debuted, but the camera missed it. Not on the network, though. The network went and re-edited it. I think the other thing with this story, and what I think is quite interesting about this, is that if this is true, right, if WrestleVotes are right, and I do think that WrestleVotes have got a bit of a spotty track record at times. Like, when they do the stuff on the Twitter timeline, that's usually pretty much on the money. But when they do their podcast, sometimes I think they just, here's the things I've heard, here's the things I've heard.
It's not as robust.
It's not as robust of reporting, I think. But if this is true from WrestleVotes, I think, as a booker, I would probably listen to what the fans are saying in this scenario. It's like, I don't particularly like this stipulation. But Money in the Bank is quite beloved by fans and has been for quite some time now.
It's a genius idea.
It's a genius idea. And also, there's been this fan frustration over the last 5 years or so, maybe even more, of we've not had a good Money in the Bank run. We've not had a good Money in the Bank cash-in moment.
The Otis 2020 run.
And
Patreon.com/WrestleTalk. You can watch me and Luke review Money in the Bank 2020, the greatest Money in the Bank match of all time.
And who did Otis cash in on?
Really great storyline, actually. Otis lost the briefcase in a legal battle of he who... possessions 9/10 of the law. I almost said he who dealt it smelt it. Like, as that was the Miz's argument for why he had the briefcase.
I mean, that would be a very Otis storyline to do.
Yeah. So Otis lost the briefcase to Miz via farting.
No, he...
And then Miz, brilliant cash-in, the guy deserved it, on Drew McIntyre.
Yeah.
Elimination Chamber. And then Miz lost it to Bobby Lashley 2 weeks later.
I think there have been good cash-ins, but there hasn't been that the Dolph Ziggler cash-in, the Seth Rollins heist of the century, the Edge first one, which, is kind of unique into itself because it's the first one. Even like RVD at One Night Stand,
doing it in advance,
that we haven't had that like classic cash-in moment. And I think if I had the book in WWE, even if I was not a fan of the stipulation, I would see that that's something that the fans really like and have sort of been clamoring for a while, and kind of go out of my way to do something really good to get fans on side with you.
I will give a shout out to my own video from last year, The Cursed History of Money in the Bank. Because when it didn't start off with that title, it was just more of a history of Money in the Bank. But when I dove into it, I was like, oh, but actually way more of these things have botched in the long run than actually been this great thing that we all think of. Kind of like when we were growing up, King of the Ring was held in such high regard.
Absolutely.
Like, if they just brought King of the Ring back, they could make a new star every year. But then you go back and look at the legacy of King of the Ring, and they're all rubbish.
All of them are rubbish. Angle's a good one.
Like, obviously, Austin, Kurt Angle winning, Austin
Lesnar.
winning, Lesnar, and Midian. I think we're all saying those are the top. The Mount Rushmore of Kings of the Rings.
I think you're thinking of Mabel, not Midian.
Yeah, one of the M's. One of the big M's. I'm giving his WCW name.
Wasn't his WCW name?
I'm sorry. I'm giving what he wrestled in All Japan. In the 80s, you wouldn't know.
Have you forgotten that what Midian was part of the Undertaker's ministry?
Just let me refresh my memory on what.
Naked,
he's a white guy.
Yeah, naked Midian.
And Mabel was the enormous guy.
Yeah, it was Big Vis.
Yeah.
Viscera.
Oh, if you just type in Mabel, you get a singer-songwriter, a lady. I don't remember her winning King of the Ring.
Okay, here's what I want people to do now, is to make the Mount Rushmore of King of the Ring winners. And it's Austin, Angle, Brett, Austin, Angle, Lesnar, and Midian. And be like, name a more iconic 4 winners of the King of the Ring.
Let's just have a look at the winners, refresh our memories. Wikipedia page. Why would you just have the main events of the shows and not the winners? King of the Ring tournament is what that is on me. So Bret Hart, Harley Race, Randy Savage, some big names early. Owen Hart.
That's where you get the King gimmick, really thing, like King Harley Race, King Savage.
So actually, the first bad one was Mabel in '95.
Yeah.
Then it's Stone Cold. Then it's Triple H.
Yeah, because Triple H was supposed to win it the year that Austin won it, but then he had the curtain call, so they delayed it by a year.
Then Ken Shamrock, Billy Gunn.
Okay, I think I might be able to do it from here.
It's your era.
Because it's Shamrock wins it in 98, Billy Gunn is 99, Angle is 2000, Edge is 2001, Lesnar is 02. And that's the last one for a while. Was there one in 03?
Then it's a break.
And then it comes back. And then this is where I'm going to be a bit spotty. I know the winners, but I don't know the order of them. William Regal wins one of them. Wade Barrett wins one of them. Sheamus wins one of them. And Booker T wins one of them because he comes King Booker.
Yeah, you got those all exactly right as the next 4, just in a slightly odd order. Because there's only 4 tournaments over a 10-year period.
That's right, yeah. And then do we have another break after that?
4-year break.
4-year break. And then do we come back with... Is that when it's not King and Queen of the Ring? So it'd be like... Oh, it's Baron Corbin.
Who beat?
Who did he beat in the final?
Come on. Who is the person that we all say every time, this is the guy who's going to win?
Chad Gable.
Yeah, Shorty G.
Chad Gable. So, yeah, because he's then King Corbin. Nakamura doesn't win it, but he wins the crown off of Baron Corbin. Then it's Xavier Woods.
Yes, it is.
Xavier Woods. And
only one more to get.
Only one more to get, which was Gunther.
Yes, I forgot that was a King of the Ring tournament.
Yeah, and on the women's side of things, Zelina Vega, I believe, won the 2021 Queen of the Ring tournament.
I've only got... Do you want me to get Queen of the Ring?
Zelina Vega won one of them, so everyone was like, all right, I guess. And Nia Jax won the most recent one.
Yeah, and those are the only 2 winners.
Those are the only 2 winners,
yeah.
Who knew that I was actually quite good at King of the Ring winners?
Well, it turns out maybe King of the Ring is better than I thought. But my point was, all of the Money in the Bank winners, even like the iconic ones, don't have the best follow-up title reigns.
Yeah.
And actually, there's loads of things like the Rob Van Dam suspension, there's the Mr. Kennedy injury and then release. And then, from like 2012 onwards, it's just nonsense, really.
Yeah.
Of people like Baron Corbin slipping through the ring, Damien Sandow,
John Cena.
They got bored of the novelty of Money in the Bank 5 years in, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, should we take a quick break?
Go on then. So I love Double or Nothing.
What a show.
It was such a good show.
I keep talking to people about Anarchy in the Arena. As great as the Hangman Ospreay match was, I cannot stop thinking about 1, 2,
3. Do you read Scott Damore's recent article he did for Yahoo Sports?
No.
Where he said it's now joined the pantheon of like the Royal Rumble and all this stuff as like the greatest gimmicks and the greatest match stipulations.
Huh.
He truly believed it was a wonderful, wonderful show.
I would like there to be stakes to it. What would you say? To join a Royal Rumble or an Elimination Chamber, I feel like they're so great because they give you something in the future.
Yeah.
advantage in the blood and guts?
I mean, well, yeah, that would be something, wouldn't it? Like, you just have to do another match instead to get to the advantage. You'd have to have the same teams, I suppose. But anyway, like, the point I was going to make was that I love Double or Nothing. You should go read Scott D'Amour's article, by the way. It's great. He loved the main events of Hangman and Will.
It's incredible.
Made the argument, it's like, hey, you've got to pull the trigger on Will. And he was like, I totally get it being Hangman's story, but there's only so many chances you're going to get to pull the trigger on Will. And then he was like, but I don't know, because I'm not in the creative meeting, so I don't know what the direction of Will is. Maybe they've got a better idea than I have, but it made sense to me as a fan. It should have been Will.
I think they keep trying to do it, but Will's like, no. This guy.
Please,
push this guy over
someone else.
Someone be selfish in that company. But CM Punk tried to be selfish, and they got rid of the guy. He's here for business, not for friendships.
But I was so excited for this week's episode
Yes.
of Dynamite, even though like they only had one match announced for a while, and so the Fightful Select report on that was there was a lot of like people banged up after Double or Nothing, and so they were like on the day with the on-site medical team trying to get as many people cleared so they could have matches. It's why I think we get the Adam Cole Carl Fletcher match on this show with a DQ finish. I don't think that was originally the plan.
Well, it was a title match. Surely they would have announced it further in advance. But hey, if Double or Nothing didn't injure you, this episode of Dynamite sure will. Bloody hell. Literally bloody hell.
I know. Well, we'll get into that. But the opening segment, this is what you kind of want from Dynamite, right? And like this is one of, I think, AEW's great strengths. And it's always when you make Hangman Page the main character of the show. And Hangman Page, he comes out for his promo and he says, I promise in 7 weeks' time, I'm going to win the AEW World Championship. And I believe him.
Well, when a babyface traditionally promises, that means they have to win.
Yeah. So
otherwise, they turn heel afterwards.
It's like the Rock's thing of like, I guarantee that I'm going to win the WWF Championship. And so he's like, I'm going to win this title for you. And then Swerve Strickland's music hit. And immediately, like, you know, I'm already like quite amped up anyway because it's Hangman Page in a promo, but you're sort of like, you just sit up ever so slightly in your chair to be like, oh, okay, what comes next?
It's not the only thing that's set up. Oh, hell yeah. It's the action.
And he played a clip of the Young Bucks after Dynasty saying, we screwed Swerve Strickland because Hangman Page doesn't want him to be champion. And we love Hangman Adam Page, and he loves us. And Swerve, I think this actually doesn't make Swerve look like the smart baby face, because he was like, is this true?
Like, because it's obviously the Bucks doing mind games.
Yeah, I was like, of course it's not true. I don't think it also doesn't feel like it's the smart follow up to that segment they had backstage where Swerve almost apologized to Hangman Page for what he did during their feud.
I'm probably reaching a bit, but I suppose you could say Swerve is so now annoyed with Hangman that Hangman is getting this shot that he's a bit blind to that. He's got lost in his own jealousy, really.
Yeah. And also, it's here to set up the story that we'll talk about in a moment. So he is like, hey, if you said I was naming the world champion, I can't have this. I can't have you be the world champion either. And Will Ospreay comes out, and the crowd are like amped up and shouting "Holy S!" because now it's Hangman, Will, and Swerve in the ring, and Will's there to play Peacemaker, and he has this awesome promo where he's like, I love you, Swerve. You were there for me when I was 20 years old. You've really like pulled me up in this industry and taught me a lot. But I need to tell you a harsh truth. You're not the guy. I'm not the guy. He's the guy. We have got one shot at this. We got one shot to get this world championship back. And we need to work together. And as he says that, Swerve knocks the microphone from his hand. And it's all off mic after this. It was like, never. I will never work with Hangman Page. I'm never going to help him win that world title. And he walks away and Will turns around and Hangman's like, I'm not working with him. It's never going to happen. And now we have got, it's 2012's Avengers, and Iron Man and Captain America and Thor have all gone off in their separate directions. And we need Agent Coulson to get murdered by Loki.
Yeah.
And for him to find that Captain America baseball card that's going to bring everyone together.
Do you think that's how it will be then? Will Ospreay will sort of be all by himself against the Death Riders, and Swerve and Hangman will have to both save him, and then they lock eyes and they're like, I guess we're doing this together. I mean, I'm getting tingly just thinking about it. We wanted them to team together really since last year's injection in the mouth match. You know, that was the big blow off of their intense rivalry. And they've been bubbling this, will they, won't they, just F each other in the ring tension since. And I was already really excited to when they would team up. And them both saying no just makes you want it more. It's like in a rom-com where, I mean, my favourite dynamic in a rom-com is when the love interests hate each other. They start off hating each other, but then the love grows over time.
Yeah.
I don't really like the ones where they fall in love and then some other thing pushes them apart.
You're not a fan of Lois and Clark?
What? But I was. But I guess I wasn't into them when they did get together.
Yeah, and
whereas
you and the rest of America.
I know, right? So this is, I'm so into this story, and I really cannot wait to see the next chapters of how they're going to get to eventually getting together. I don't think it's not bad storytelling that this is quite predictable in that they're going to work together and Hangman Page is going to win.
Yeah.
It was predictable that Cody was going to have the Cody Vengers and he was going to beat Roman at WrestleMania 41.
Yeah, and I so in my head, the way I'm kind of like fantasy...
WrestleMania 40.
WrestleMania 40, yeah. Like, this is the way I'm sort of fantasy booking this in my head. Because I saw someone in the comments on yesterday's video say that Nana should be Agent Coulson, which I think is quite a smart use. So, okay, imagine Nana's getting beaten down the ring by the Death Riders. Swerve goes out to make the save, and they're starting to beat him down as well. So the Death Riders are beating down Swerve and Nana. And Hangman Page, not to save Swerve, but just because he wants to take out Jon Moxley, runs down to the ring and he starts to, brawling with them. And Swerve gets Nana out of the ring. He starts carrying him up the ramp. Will Ospreay runs past him to be like, help him. And he runs the ring. And Will's then getting beaten down as well. And Swerve and Nana are up on the stage and he's got Swerve in his arms. And Nana looks at him and gives him the nod. And Swerve looks back. And he runs to the ring, and the three of them work together to take out the Death Riders into Stan's Hall.
I can't wait.
I'm so excited for all of this.
Just one little thing. This Owen Hart Cup's got to be an actual cup.
And it was.
Why is it a belt?
Every week on TV, it was a trophy. And then at the pay-per-view, they were like, and the belt's here. And I was like, oh, so it is the belt, is it?
Yeah, it's just like, it's the skull becoming a Superman codex. Why do that? Just have it as a codex all the time.
Yeah. I was actually slightly disappointed the belt was here. That they brought the belt back because it was just better as a trophy.
And then he has this awkward moment where he's like, this is going to have another champion next year, so I'm going to give it back to you, Tony Schiavone. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I guess...
The rest of the segment was great, but I was like, that's so complicated.
I guess it's just for Mercedes Moné because she is this belt collector, so it's just another belt for her to be able to carry around. We then had a trios match, a mixed gender trios match, as Jon Moxley, Gabe Kidd, and Marina Shafir took on Willow Nightingale, Speedball, Mike Bailey, and I wonder who could take a pin in this match. Aha! Here comes Mark Briscoe.
This was such a good match.
Really fun.
I guess the point was to show the three baby faces in the opening segment not working together well. And then here was the heels, the Death Riders, although Gabe's in there instead of someone like Yuta. Mox, Gabe, and Marina, they're this like just on the same page and they get the victory.
Yeah.
So there's a nice bit there. It's weird seeing Moxley, the world champion, just in a second segment trios match with the likes of Speedball and Mark Briscoe.
Yeah, it's just to follow on from the opening segment. It's like, I completely agree with you that the thing with Mox at the moment is that he doesn't sometimes feel like the world champion. And maybe that's just because he doesn't pose with the belt, but he doesn't often feel like this end boss. Like he doesn't feel like the Thanos that they need to beat here in Endgame.
He did the previous week in the Joe Cage match because he had a focused on prominent position.
But the story I think that they were doing with doing these two segments back to back is that you've got these three baby faces who are not on the same page, but they kind of need to be. Yeah. And the Death Riders, who are all on the same page, beat three baby faces who were on the same page. So even if Hangman, Will, and Swerve can combine their forces together, it still might not be enough to beat the Death Riders because they are this unstoppable unit who were stopped at the pay-per-view.
Chris Statlander was watching on backstage as well. The commentators were sort of teasing her and Willow, so maybe they'll get back together. I don't know.
Yeah, well, maybe that's about this. My theory that they're going to a tag division for the women's tag titles.
The Hurt Syndicate got a promo. I thought that was a bit of a waste because they've been one of the better things on Dynamite, and we didn't have MJF and the Hurt Syndicate together here.
Yeah, it was just for the one moment when MJF said he's going to be world champion again, and Bobby gave him a side eye.
Then we get the... Oh, Ricochet also got a backstage promo.
Yeah, I missed this in my recap when I did the my in 5-minute review yesterday. But yeah, he's going to get a faction.
Yeah, he runs through all the factions and goes, I think I need a group too. I need a crew. Which is the name of Leo Rush and Action Andretti's tag team. So yes, please.
That'd be good.
That'd be really fun. But then came the tag match. Your theory that they're going to make a women's tag division. They might go through teams quite quickly if they work like this. It was a hardcore no DQ match because Bane and Penelope Ford accused Cameron and Anna Jay of cheating at the pay-per-view, which they didn't really. And yeah, there's a lot of weapon shots. Bane dropped Cameron on the steel steps at one point and presumably busted her nose open.
Right, busted her face right open.
I thought it was a blood capsule. They focused on it so much and made it part of the story. I was like, is this a work?
And I thought that Harley Cameron really used it to her advantage as well, because when she stood up and she had the blood pouring from her nose and from her mouth and stuff, the crowd would then like feel the wrath. So like it did actually almost enhance the match and help it get over. Like there will be some people, and I totally understand this point of view, that if you just do blood all the time, then it doesn't add anything. But I think the 2 blood spots you had on this show were by accident.
Yes, yeah. Because Anna Jay also got busted open,
Yeah.
and she was attended to by doctors on the outside. And the finish was Harley taking a doomsday device, which Penelope Ford never clothes-lined. So the heels won. But yeah, and I actually enjoyed the match, but it was sloppy.
Oh yeah. It's not the classic, because I think AEW have got quite a good track record of like women's hardcore tag matches or women's hardcore matches. I think they've got a really strong. This was not one of those. It's good fun. It's not amongst the pantheon of great ones they've had previously. But I know what you really want to talk about.
My actual favourite thing on the show.
So the Ops had a little enhancement match against this new act, the Frat House.
Yeah, so they're on Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
It's Griff Garrison, it's Cole Carter, it's Preston Vance, remember him?
Yeah.
And it's
handpicked by Brody Lee.
Jacked Jameson as their mouthpiece. And then a couple of other guys.
The Pledges.
Their gimmick is they go from city to city along with the touring Dynamite, and they have frat parties, and they try and find new frat boys for their faction by hazing them.
Yeah.
And then you got clips of the night out the previous night.
So good.
Yeah.
And okay, here is what I absolutely loved about the Frat House, because I don't watch a lot of Ring of Honor, so this is kind of my first time seeing these guys. Right. What I absolutely love about the Frat House is their catchphrase, because their catchphrase is designed for you to, but not like boo them. It's actually, if you join along, you're booing them as heels, because it's all about booze.
Win or lose, we boo. But he never gets to finish the word booze because Samoa Joe murders him.
But so if you are chanting along with that, you as an audience are going to be booing them, because you're going to go boo.
They tricked me into giving this act I like heel heat.
It's so good. It's so great.
It was just a squash match. Powerhouse Hobbs spine busted every single member of the faction.
And you've got the lad on the outside being like, Pledges, get in there. And he's like throwing these lads in. Spine buster.
Very fun. And afterwards, there's this shot of all the dead frat boys on the ground outside with their red cups empty beside them. So it just looked like the end of a big night out. Brilliant.
It's genius.
Absolutely brilliant.
So great.
Not so brilliant was the camera work and I guess overall booking of this segment. Jamie Hayter comes out for an interview with Renee Paquette in the ring after the Monet loss at the pay-per-view. The lights turn off before she even really gets to start talking. And Tekla? Oh, I want to say Thekla every time because that's how it's spelt. Her Tron plays, and then we cut to the ring. Hayter's already dead. You're like, what? And then Tekla picks her up, hits her with a lariat, and then does the cool tarantula Bray Wyatt pose and zips round, and then they move on and never talk about it again.
So I think the presentation of this was broadly fine. You know,
I think they missed. It was awkward.
And when I say broadly fine, from a production standpoint, it is not fine. But positioning her with Jamie Hayter, who was just in the finals of the tournament. So that's a thumbs up. So because you've got this sort of thumbs down over here and a thumbs up over here, you get broadly fine in the middle. But what makes this almost a thumbs down segment, and I would argue it is a thumbs down segment, is they proper TNA to the back with this. Which is like Vince Russo was booked a 2-hour show, but we've only got 1 hour of TV time. We need to get to the next segment immediately.
Mystico needs his video package.
Who's not on the show or on Collision.
Yeah, they've been building this for about a month with the little blood spider graphics on the AEW Chiron in the corner, which is meant to herald Tekla's debut. But yeah, it makes her feel like, she's just going to have a Deonna Purrazzo-like run because she didn't get the big presentation early. But we'll see where it goes.
Speaking of, she seemed a bit unhappy on Twitter because someone said, we're going to see you on Dynamite. She said, yeah, maybe in picture-in-picture.
Oh, Deonna Purrazzo, yeah.
That was one of my 3-word predictions this year was disgruntled Fightful interview.
Kyle Fletcher and Adam Cole then had a match for the TNT title. No Hiroshi Tanahashi anywhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, a few people did correct you when you were like, he's already had his last match on American soil, but Forbidden Door's here in the UK this year. So they can...
Oh, they can build it for that. Yeah. I see.
I think the reason why we're surprised is less that Forbidden Door's in the UK this year because we're aware of that. It is more a case of a bit early to be starting the teasers of Hiroshi Tanahashi's last UK match.
So this really, I think you're right. They just put this match on because they were maybe running low on talent after the pay-per-view.
It's like you're playing My GM modes and you've got a roster and it's like a lot of people are just under 30 at the moment, but you've got these two. I was going to save this for the pay-per-view. They're already on a level 4 feud. I don't want to put this out on TV and make it go on cooldown, but I've got nothing else I can put out there.
Yeah. Oh, I'm putting everyone out injured. Don't worry. But this was Trent and Rocky interfere, which lets Carl get on top initially. Ultimately, Josh Alexander causes the DQ before Adam Cole went to win, presumably with the boom. And then that tied into the next match, which was Brody King versus Josh Alexander, which is part of that international title 4-way qualifying thing.
For next week's 4-hour
Dynamite. Yeah, right. But the big spot here was Kyle powerbombing Cole on the apron, but being too far away.
Sure was.
So he just powerbombed the back of Adam Cole's head onto the ring apron, which isn't nice to see when the guy has a history of concussions.
Yeah. I mean, apparently he's okay, so it's all right, but eesh, man, it was a rough owl bump.
Close call.
Yeah.
But that King Alexander match was brilliant, I thought. Really, really good match. I love watching Josh Alexander wrestle. I thought Josh would win to have the sort of Don Callis family representation in a match against Kenny next week.
That makes sense, yeah.
But yeah, it was Brody.
Yeah, Brody King got the win. It was, nice to see Brody get a win and, go into a big match next week. And they taped Collision after this, so we know who the other two people going into the 4-way are. We won't do it here because for spoilers and such. You can go find out if you're interested. I really enjoyed this. The DQ match of the TNT titles, I think that's all they could do. They didn't want to do a finish here because that's probably going to be the match at All In. But I was very pleased to see Brody King get the win in this match. And then it kind of led us into the main... so Fletcher and Cole had a brawl afterwards as well, which I think, is there to set up... We're going to do this match again down the line. And then the main event of the show was the showdown between Mercedes Moné and Toni Storm. And when this segment ended, I actually pressed enter on my keyboard twice because I was about to make notes for what the next match will be. Because this didn't feel like the main event of the show or the final moment of the show. I was actually quite hungry for more of the show. Yeah,
which is nice, particularly when we've watched 20 hours of AEW on Double or Nothing. This segment did really well in the ratings.
Did it really?
Yeah, this was... the typical trend for Dynamite is that the viewers drop off over the course of the episode, which is why main events are sometimes done right in the opening. But yeah, this captured people's imagination, and it had a really decent high rating for the final segment.
But I thought that Mercedes Moné was not a draw, and neither's Toni Storm.
It must be something else then. They must have been tuning in for what was going to happen after this Dynamite.
Yeah. Probably Revenge of the Sith or something.
But yeah, it was a pretty standard promo exchange. It felt big time because these two have never crossed paths. They're both the top women's champions. And they just, sexual innuendos galore. Tony Storm said, if you want to ride the Monet train through the Tony tunnel, I just hope you can get deep enough. And then Monet said, not even your hips are wide enough for the Monet train. I guess meaning she's got a massive cock.
Such a huge knob. She is packing.
But yeah, Monet, I'm the greatest of all time, but Tony is timeless. Got a great reaction from the crowd.
Crowd really, really got into this. And I'm looking forward to their match. Tony Khan even teased at the post-show press conference for Double or Nothing, this could be the main event of All In. I think it'll be Hangman and Mox. If it is not Hangman and Mox, then I think Mox might retain. And we're getting that because we're building to that Darby Allin win.
It could be a main event.
No, if you're doing the big run-ins, you're doing the big Avengers Assemble thing where all the babyfaces run in to take out all the heels and the babyface finally wins the title, then that's main eventing the show because you're going to struggle to follow that afterwards.
Got Okada Omega as well, most likely.
That could open the show, if anything, or be in the middle. Like if Mercedes and Tony opens, if you can't main event open the show, maybe Okada Omega is going to be in the middle of the broadcast.
Overall, very decent follow-up episode from Double or Nothing to start this long 6-7 week build to All In. But shall we take a quick break? Let me give you a recap of the story so far on the WWE counter-programming saga. Mm-hmm. So, of course, there's been stuff before. Ever since AEW launched, they put NXT on the same night on Wednesdays.
Directly ahead of it.
2 weeks before Dynamite
They got NXT a TV deal to counter-program Dynamite.
So in May, Double or Nothing, which we've just seen, WWE then announced Saturday night's main event for the night before, and then closer to the time, they announced NXT Battleground, so NXT PLE, the same time as Double or Nothing, running head-to-head. So we've just had that. Now, the next big AEW pay-per-view is All In on July 12th. That's been announced for ages, like since last August, because it's their big first stadium show in North America. And WWE announced Saturday night's main event for the same day. So AEW were like, okay, God, that's annoying. Let's move it forward. And I think it's now got a 12 p.m., 1 p.m. start time.
Moved it to the afternoon.
So it doesn't clash with Saturday night's main event.
Which does, sorry, it's not my thing there, does hurt. Like we've seen this, across history, when particularly with Collision, when that was always running on Saturday nights against WWE PLEs, that episode of Collision would absolutely tank in the ratings because wrestling fans were watching WWE shows. And Saturday night's main events will likely have an impact on All In's buy rates.
Yeah, because there's only so much wrestling people can realistically take in one day.
Yeah.
And it probably is about 4 hours. So this would, if you watched all of that would be like 9 hours, I guess. And
the argument is you can watch Saturday night's main event on whatever channel it's on, or pay $50 to watch the AEW pay-per-view. That's the intent here, is to put people off when I can watch wrestling for free, broadly speaking, or dropping $50 to watch a pay-per-view.
But they're not done there. Because AEW moved All In earlier, so WWE were like, oh, we've got an NXT. Coincidentally booked for that exact same time. NXT Great American Bash will go directly head-to-head with All In, with Saturday night's main event later that day. And then also, they announced for the next night, on the 13th of July, it'll be the all-women's pay-per-view Evolution.
That was when I predicted this, didn't I? Like, we talked about this a couple of weeks back. I said, because they announced that it was either going to, the rumor was it's either going to be on the 12th or the 13th. And you were like, well, surely it'll be on the 13th because this is before they did the NXT thing. I was like, you said, well, surely it'll be on the 13th because they've got Saturday night's main event on the 12th. I was like, no, they'll do it on the 12th, but in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I just didn't think they're doing Battleground instead and then doing Evolution. I didn't think they would double book it.
They're trying to spam the weekend with wrestling.
Yeah.
So All In gets lost in the noise.
I feel so bad for Evolution because it's going to be so hugely underserved. Like Sean Ross Sapp was talking about this on Fightful, that some of the women in WWE didn't even know the show was happening until WWE announced it.
Yeah, it shows like the real significance WWE do hold women's wrestling, and then that they're only 2 female-only pay-per-views ever. One was done to mitigate bad PR from the Saudi Arabian deal, and the second one is used to counter-program AEW in a cynical move.
In a town that's got a Beyonce show on the same day as Evolution 2, which means that's going to struggle for its own ticket sales. And all you're doing is just trying to stop people buying the AEW pay-per-view because they can watch this one on Peacock the following day.
You think there's a big Beyonce crossover with the wrestling audience?
Well, no, but it's more that it's like if you want to travel to this show, getting a hotel is going to be super expensive.
Yes, of course. So Tony Khan had a really good reply when he was asked about this in the press conference for Double or Nothing. Usually he would have gotten annoyed, stumbled over his words, and spoke for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But here he had a really succinct answer with a little cheeky grin. He said, "It's pretty consistent. I'd say it's the most consistent event head-to-head scheduling since Jim Crockett Promotions. Saw a lot of scheduling that went that way, and I can tell you that this will go a lot differently than that did."
Yeah. So this is a reference to the Royal Rumble only exists because they wanted to counter Jim Crockett Promotions. Survivor Series only exists because they wanted to counter Jim Crockett Promotions running a show. And I think it was Survivor Series. Vince went round and said, if you show Jim Crockett, you're not getting Survivor Series or any of our other upcoming shows. You've got to choose us or them. And
the latest thing has come out. It's just like every couple of days there's a new WWE counter-programming story. So, you could say it's all coincidence, but it's quite patently not.
We haven't even talked about the Forbidden Door ones yet.
Yeah. So AEW have a 7-show residency, all in the same venue, which is the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia.
Yeah, famously the ECW Arena.
And they did a show there recently, and it was awesome, really good atmosphere. It's a bold move, though, to run that many shows in one area over the same period, because you might burn out the town. The popular parlance in wrestling is called killing the territory. Yeah. When you run too many shows in that area, it saps demand.
I mean, WWE sort of had that with Tampa.
Yes, yeah.
They ran the NXT show that was supposed to end off that run really suffered because they'd had 3 shows before it.
And now WrestleVotes, right? We're told WWE has an interesting location lined up for an upcoming NXT TV. Tuesday, August 19th at the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. That show comes just 1 week before AEW kicks off its 7-show residency at the same venue.
Yeah. So they're doing that because if you are a fan in that area and you want to go see some wrestling, why buy a ticket for AEW when 7 days earlier you can go watch an NXT show instead? So
there's a bunch of questions here. I think it's very obvious, but let's just agree, right? Because there's a lot of voices on the internet. Some say it's not counter-programming. And then in the same comments usually, they then say, even if it is, this is just business.
Well, here's the thing: is I agree with that. There are some people.
I don't think you can have both.
You can't
say it's
both.
not counter-programming,
but if
it is, it's just business.
So there are some people who, as a way to defend WWE, are like, well, you wanted competition, you wanted this stuff. It's like, well, that's not, I don't think what people are complaining about. The whole point of a wrestling war is that you are at war with one another. I think the thing that I take issue with is there are some people who still pretend that it's not. It's not a war, and they're not doing this to counter-program. I think those people are just blindly loyal to WWE and be like, no, they're not. They're not scared of it. They're not doing it for any other reason than it just makes sense to do a show there. I think you've got to be fairly blind to not see that this is done on purpose to counter-program.
Or not real. Or they're bots. Tony Khan told us years ago they're all bots. We spoke earlier about sort of Paul Levesque not being this brand new booker who's come in with none of the baggage of WWE and Vince McMahon from the past. He was there that entire time. So a lot of those same business practices of aggressively counter-programming things to run them out of business, like TNA in 2010, the same tactics apply. So why are WWE doing it now? Because they didn't bother that much last year, but they are really, really doing it a lot this year. I feel like it's because AEW, since the start of, February, I guess, with the Australia show, they found a turnaround in momentum, in quality of product, and fan sentiment.
I will disagree, because I think this plan has been in motion before AEW started getting good again. I think it was like, kick them while they're down and bury them now. because they were really struggling in 2023 and 2024, right? So if you're TKO and you're looking at this company that is kind of, we're struggling for ticket sales, our ratings aren't as hot as it was, the sentiment around the product is not quite where it used to be, let's just wipe them out then. Like, this is our chance to pull the trigger and just like finally put them dead and put them in the ground. So let's just run all the shows against them in 2025 while we are the hot product that people are really interested in, because that's going to hurt the company even more. But as it turns out, they are now starting to be a hot product. So it kind of looks like that you're scared of AEW success, which I don't think that they are, but
they're aware.
But they are aware, right? And like, I think what's very smart about WWE and TKO and this is exactly what they did in 2019, is they don't run WWE shows against them. You know, Saturday Night's Main Event notwithstanding, it is always NXT shows, because it's the most genius. Because Triple H did this when they did the Wednesday Night War. It's the most genius move. If you beat them, you got beat by a developmental brand. If you lose, that's just our developmental brand. Like, it was never going to win. It's a win-win situation for WWE from a PR and sort of like public-facing perspective.
I've heard a couple of people are like, why do it? I don't think the tactic's working because it's not actually seemingly harming the live attendance of AEW. If anything, it's more harming WWE. They're running more shows, they're burning out their audience, and like the NXT example from last weekend showed, they had to pull a show from a bigger venue because they didn't sell it out. I think they're overlooking trolls. Triple H loves to troll. Yeah. WWE loves to troll. That they can take those hits in numbers. This is about the mind games. This is about keeping sustained, really quite annoying pressure to make Tony make a mistake.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I think Jimmy Van might have been talking about this on The Hump, or it might have been him that I had talking about this. This idea that when Tony Khan, the last time they were talking about counter-programming, and he did have a little bit of a rant at the media show, he got rattled.
Yeah.
So if you're TK, if you're Nick Khan, and you're there being like, let's do that more, because he's rattled by this, let's just do it more, because it will make them panic more, and it will make them rush things. But now it feels like Tony Khan's a bit more measured about this. Maybe he's got smarter people in his ear that are being like, don't rise to the bait, stick to what we're doing, because what we're doing is currently working. You know, we haven't even talked about the Forbidden Door one, which I think is probably the more egregious of the counter-programming thing, because that is the one that isn't NXT. So they are doing the show here at the O2 in London in August. So WWE have arranged an entire UK tour, including taping to Raw and SmackDown, against that one show. And you know, it's for Clashing Paris or whatever the show. It's not, though, is it?
Yeah.
Like, it is done specifically to harm the O2 sales and ticket sales of Forbidden Door.
I think there is a risk of this backfiring on WWE. I think since WrestleMania 41 and it wasn't this big critical commercial it was a commercial success. It wasn't the big critical success that WrestleMania 40 was. It left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And then you've got all these other bits right now, like the high ticket prices, the wrestler releases while wrestlers are injured. Even Vince generally didn't do that. A slightly stagnating product, particularly with SmackDown on 3 hours. Loads of shows, which might burn out the audience. I think WWE, from what I've seen online, and from what I feel, they're looking like the heels again.
It does, doesn't it?
And with AEW, they are feeling more like the plucky underdog babyface with the big Triple H corporation hounding them. And this is a very interesting switch, because for the last 3 years since Vince went, Levesque has been this savior of wrestling, and everyone loves him. It's all love. But now the tide and sentiment is starting to shift, I think, in AEW's favor. And I think that is from WWE's own making, because of things like this.
It's that old phrase that we say a lot on this show: when you are hot, you can do nothing wrong. When you're cold, you can do nothing right. And if WWE is starting to become a bit of a colder product than it once was, a lot of the choices they're making will not seem like the right choice to make. But when they were hot, they could do no wrong. And a lot of the choices they made, fans saw as the right thing to do. but because there's not this overwhelmingly positive sentiment towards them at the moment, it highlights and puts a spotlight on these choices that makes them look like they're the wrong choices to make.
Well, let us know what you all think in the comments over on YouTube and Spotify, of course. Like these comments from last week.
Oh, yeah, the comments.
We got from Mr. Deegan2 on YouTube. As a Welshman, I am here to say everything Ollie said is correct. My family was lucky. We worked the pot noodle mines. We even got to drive the big truck. Happy to support our English overlords.
It was nice to know, actually, that canary in the coal mine is a phrase that's used over in the US as well.
Yes, they must have also just killed all those birds as well. Thrower Plays writes, I've been feeling quite down lately and subsequently have been binging YouTube to feel a bit better. Big truck. I think I've watched pretty much every... Sorry, Luke was mid-Huel sip. I think I've watched pretty much every 3 Count and TLC on here, and your content has honestly made me forget about troubles and feel better, Big Truck. Thank you, guys. Also, love these new podcasts. All the best, Nathan, Big Truck. I think it's seamless. Like, you just don't notice the Big Truck references.
It's so good.
And over from Spotify, yes, we can see your comments too. I looked. So Tim Ferriss, one of the largest podcasts in the world, I looked at his recent episode. 9 comments. How many comments did ours have? 19! Yeah! We've got a more engaged audience, Tim Ferriss. Pogo is here over on Spotify, writes, I'm hyped for Double or Nothing. Hope they can top last year where Jack got set on fire and Darby got hit by...
A big truck!
A big truck! Thanks for all your big trucking comments. Remember, this week's secret challenge is, to talk about the 4 best winners, the Mount Rushmore of King of the Win. King of the Win. Call it King of the Win.
Call it King of the Win.
Here are my best King of the Winners.
Yeah.
And you say, it could be, and it's going to be 3 great ones.
Yeah.
And 1 objectively awful one, like Mabel or Baron Corbin.
But I think the key to it, and where your creativity must shine, is it's got to sound like someone who might have won it. So, like,
you could do actual winners.
So, what I'm saying is you've got to have 3 winners, 3 actual winners that were, absolute Stone Cold classics. Maybe Stone Cold will be one of them. But your 4th one has to look like a genuine mistake that you thought won King of the Ring. Because that's,
Road Dogg.
You mistook. Yeah, Road Dogg's a great example. Former tag partner of Billy Gunn. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Frank Shamrock.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's your...
Ryan Shamrock.
Probably do something that I really hate on social media, right? It's like, name a more iconic... No notes. That's your secret word challenge. And of course, please do leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, you can leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts.
Leave a review on YouTube. Do they have those?
Well, you can throw a thumbs up, right? That's sort of a review.
Share this video around. Hopefully you enjoyed the new Friday schedule. We're trying this out at the moment. So every Tuesday, Friday, and a bonus one if there's a pay-per-view that we'll cover as well, like we did with Double or Nothing earlier this week. But for now, I've been Ollie Davis. This has been Luke Owen DAD. Go over to Cutscene, our movie channel, if you want even more nonsense chat where we talk for over an hour about how bad of Man of Steel is. Jam that jam.
Jam that jam.